When you think of old Las Vegas, you probably picture neon signs flickering in the desert, dice tumbling across green felt, and showgirls in feathers under hot lights. But here's the twist. When Las Vegas began, it wasn't Sin City at all. It was a dusty pit stop built around a few springs of water. No casinos, no mobsters, just railroad workers, ranchers, and shopkeepers trying to survive in the Mojave. And that's where our story starts, because the Vegas you know was carefully built, not born. Before anyone sold dreams under a flashing marquee, the Las Vegas Valley was prized for something much simpler: water. This part of the Mojave Desert was dry, punishing, and unforgiving, but it hid a rare treasure: artesian springs bubbling up from deep underground. The southern Paiute people knew these waters well, using them as part of a seasonal cycle of movement, hunting, and trade. In the early 19th century, Spanish-speaking traders moving along what became known as the Old Spanish Trail stopped here to rest. They named it Las Vegas, meaning the meadows, for the grass fed by those precious springs. For decades, the valley was a waypoint, not a destination, a place where travelers refilled their canteens, rested their animals, and moved on. The first permanent settlement attempt came in 1855 when Mormon missionaries from Utah built a small adobe fort near the springs. It was short-lived. Harsh weather, isolation, and tensions with local tribes led most to abandon the site within 2 years. The crumbling adobe walls still stand today as a reminder of just how difficult life here could be. By the late 1800s, America was racing to connect its farthest corners by rail. Montana copper magnate and U.S. Senator William A. Clark wanted a line linking Salt Lake City to Los Angeles, and the Las Vegas Valley offered a perfect midway stop. It had water for steam locomotives and open land for a rail yard. In 1905, the San Pedro Los Angeles and Salt Lake Railroad auctioned off 110 acres near the tracks in neat rectangular lots. The sale took place under a large canvas tent, with businessmen, ranchers, and opportunists bidding on pieces of what would become downtown Las Vegas. Streets like Fremont and Carson were drawn on maps before the ground beneath them had even been leveled. That's the moment Las Vegas officially became a town. But not yet this Las Vegas. The population was a few hundred. The tallest structures were water towers. Saloons existed, but they were more about keeping railroad workers occupied than creating glamorous nightlife. The air smelled of creosote from the ties and smoke from the locomotives. Here's the part people often miss. In its early years, Las Vegas actually worked hard against a reputation for vice. The railroad owned much of the downtown land and enforced strict rules in its district. No drunken brawls, no prostitution near the yards, and curfews for workers. The trouble was that beyond the railroad's company-town boundaries, there was a place called Block 16. That's where the saloons, gambling tables, and brothels set up shop, because they weren't under railroad control. These businesses catered to men just off work on the rails or returning from the surrounding mines. Block 16 was dusty, dimly lit, and in constant need of new furniture thanks to bar fights. And yet, it was one of the most profitable corners of town. Even so, Las Vegas in the 1910s and 1920s wasn't unique in this. Dozens of small western towns had similar red light districts. It hadn't yet earned the Sin City name. It was simply a railroad town with a predictable split between the respectable side and the fun side. Another popular misconception is that Prohibition, which began in 1920, turned off the taps and killed nightlife in Las Vegas. In reality, it did the opposite. The legal saloons closed, but the demand didn't disappear. Instead, speakeasies popped up in back rooms, hidden behind barbershops, or in rented houses. For some, Prohibition became their first taste of running a gambling table alongside illicit drinks, a skill set that would be very handy in the decades to come. But even with secret bars in Block 16, the city wasn't drawing national attention yet. That would change in 1931, when Nevada made two decisions that set the stage for a transformation. In the early months of the Great Depression, Nevada's lawmakers legalized gambling to stimulate the economy. They also passed the nation's most lenient divorce laws, allowing couples to dissolve marriages after just 6 weeks of residency. These two legal changes, made for entirely practical reasons, would become the cornerstones of Las Vegas marketing for years. Suddenly, the little desert stopover could sell something other cities couldn't: legal gaming and quick divorces. People began arriving not just to pass through, but to stay for a while, either for a few weeks to get unmarried or for a few days to try their luck at the tables. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect, because just as the ink dried on those laws, a massive federal project was taking shape a short drive away. The construction of Hoover Dam, originally Boulder Dam, in the 1930s brought thousands of workers into the region. Most were young, single men earning steady paychecks during a time when much of America was unemployed. On their days off, they came into Las Vegas looking for a release. And the city was ready. Small gambling halls expanded, saloons stayed open longer, and entertainment options grew. The rail town had begun to turn into a resort town, if on a modest scale. And while it was still far from the glittering strip of later decades, the foundations for Sin City were now firmly in place. It's tempting to imagine that vice in Las Vegas grew naturally and without planning, but much of the anything goes image was deliberate. By the late 1930s, local leaders realized they could sell an exaggerated version of their nightlife to attract more visitors. Posters, postcards, and travel ads began to feature gambling scenes, chorus girls, and promises of fun you can't find anywhere else. The myth was working. By the 1940s, soldiers on leave, traveling businessmen, and honeymooners were all stopping in Vegas. And it was right around this time that organized crime began to take an interest, not in founding the city, but in investing in its already growing gambling industry. So, no, Las Vegas wasn't born a city of sin. It was born a city of water, tracks, and dust. It became Sin City through a combination of legal quirks, economic opportunity, clever marketing, and, eventually, mob-backed expansion. That distinction matters because it reminds us that Las Vegas has always been a constructed fantasy, one that's evolved for over a century. And in the next part, we'll tackle the second biggest misconception of all, that the mob built Las Vegas. The truth? They didn't lay the first bricks, but when they arrived, they changed the rules of the game forever. And the way they did it is stranger, riskier, and more calculated than most Hollywood movies would ever admit.